Well, hey there. Once again, you found yourself to the Week Unspun, our weekly live look at the world through the eyes of the PR professional. PR professionals from around the world. I'm David Gallagher, your designated Texan in England.
Of course. And I'm dug down somewhere in Western Canada.
Somewhere in Western Canada. And with our friend Farzana Bajwal at a client conference today, we are saddened that we don't have her on screen, but we're delighted to have my friend and colleague, Miranda, the absolutely fabulous Miranda Mitchell. Miranda is the managing director of the Pretail agency here in London, a colleague of ours at Folgate, and an absolute star figure in the UK PR scene. So welcome, Miranda. I didn't even ask you earlier where you're dialing in today.
Thank you, David. That's such a lovely introduction. I'm here in sunny London. It's actually sunny today. It was trying hard to snow this week, but today it is lovely and sunny, and I'm super excited to be on this show. I think the first time I ever met you, you told me you wanted to do a podcast, and here you are, and I've been watching along, and I think it's great. So yay, I'm finally on it.
Yay.
Rocking it.
That's a lot of fun.
I think the sun is shining just because you're here, Miranda. That's obviously the thing.
Smooth.
Okay, as usual, we've been looking at news stories. David was teasing me because I kept texting him, kept WhatsApping him. Hey, we should do this story. We should do this story. So we got a lot to get through. If you're watching live on LinkedIn, YouTube, X, Instagram, or if you're listening to the audio replay, it's great to have you. If you're on the live, though, get your comments in. Every time David says something that, no, that's not how it is. Get in there and get your comments and reinforce your point. Do it live and we'll call them out. So lot to get to, but I think number one is that Epstein story, David. That's you called it last week. You felt this one was going to percolate and fill the room, and it's filling the house with its aroma.
Yeah, it's one of the ones I didn't want to be right about because it's such a sad story. It's a horrific story on a lot of levels, but it's inevitable, and we committed ourselves to addressing the more prominent headlines. So I just want to frame this for people who maybe mercifully aren't exposed to the details of this story. This is the Jeffrey Epstein story. He's a financier from Southern Florida, well-known accomplice, friend, perhaps business associate with Trump, at least in the far past. The story goes back 20 years. Back in 2005, authorities were alerted to alleged improprieties with girls, and sometimes the media has called them underage women. There's really no such thing. They were girls. He dodged some. I think I got the timeline right. He dodged some local charges, state charges. Ended up doing some time in 2008 on it's not really house arrest, but sort of a work release program. A lot of people thought it was a sweetheart deal. The U.S. attorney at the time was a guy named Alex Acosta, who later became Trump's secretary of labor. I don't know if there's any relationship there. He was released and then rearrested on federal charges, this time in 2019. This is in July, and was dead, found dead in a cell just a month later. And since then, that all hell has broken loose in terms of how this story has been presented and covered. And like it or not, it's how a lot of people see the PR world in terms of what we do to either promote these stories or protect against these stories. And I just thought it was something we should take a look at. In the more recent history, there was a pledge from the then candidate Trump in his second campaign. He said, yeah, I'll release the files. There was some pressure from victims groups and police, local police, to release the files. He said he would. Then he said he'd do it imminently. His press secretary at the time said that she had the client list on her desk and she'd be releasing them soon. There was a stunt at the Capitol where some right-wing influencers said they had the files. Turns out there weren't really any files. And then they said, we're not going to do it. There weren't any files after all. We're closing the investigation. And then really things started to pick up politically. Just this past week, the House passed a bill saying we need to release the files. The Senate passed essentially exactly the same bill with one notable exception. President Trump did sign that into action, and now it's meant to be released within 30 days. So we should, in theory, see something on the 19th of December. So I just want you guys, what's your take? What's your immediate reaction, gut reaction, and what would you be thinking, I guess, if you could put yourself in the minds of the White House press room right now?
Yeah, the waffle or the flip-flop from the Trump administration has been really weird because you're right. After 4 years under Biden's leadership, the Democrats just refused to release the files. And you're right, mounting pressure. Trump ran on it saying, I'll release them. Then he didn't release them. Then we don't have to. And now, obviously, there's not just public pressure, but there's pressure within his own party to release the files. I support the release of the Epstein files, but that one no vote I thought was really interesting from Congressman Clay Higgins. He's a Republican from Louisiana. He's got a bit of a reputation as a rabble rouser, a bit of a rascal. But when you dig into his reasoning, his objections, they're at least worth noting. And again, I support releasing the files. He feels releasing raw investigative material could unfairly drag innocent people into the frenzy that's about to come. If the process leads to loose speculation or casual mentions, and we should be careful not to condemn anyone based solely on a passing reference or the word of Jeffrey Epstein, who has zero credibility whatsoever. I've worked in broadcasting. I've lived that pressure where there's hours of airtime that have to be filled. I can already see the media starting to go through that, where they're trying to fill the airtime. Megyn Kelly had a very awkward attempt to parse the medical definition of pedophilia simply because the conversation needed to keep moving. Clinically accurate or not, the distinction doesn't change the legal reality. In American law, pedophile is not a category. Epstein was a sex offender who trafficked and exploited minors, and that core truth should anchor whatever comes next. Miranda.
Wow. So, yeah, there's a lot to unpack. I think I'll just start with David. You asked, what would we be feeling if we were White House press secretary? Probably like we wished we had a different job, like horrific. I mean, I think the things that have struck me is he obviously does not want to talk about this and hasn't wanted to talk about it and didn't want to release them. And whenever he was asked, it was the usual playbook of deflection or accusing somebody else, or you want to be looking at Bill Clinton or whoever else, Reid Hoffman, or he would just either have his usual kind of roster of things he would do, point to other people. He would do a lot recently, I've noticed, with female journalists where he's just attacks them personally, from the Piggy episode.
One was terrible. That's terrible.
Be Quiet Piggy, through to, I think, another lady, Nancy, where he said, you're a terrible journalist and your network is terrible. And I just always find when I watch him, I am always, to use a word from Traitors in the UK, flabbergasted, because he runs to his own tune and we are constantly amazed that he gets away with it, and he does. And he's ripped up the entire playbook of how you would behave when you were a member of the public eye or professional or politics. And then he does it and we all just take it and it keeps happening. And I think with this, he doesn't answer questions that are perfectly justified for the media to ask him. His responses are crazy and brazen and show, I just don't want to deal with this. And then the yo-yo thing that you described at the start, David, has been just that, like a mess of somebody just trying to avoid something they can't avoid. And now I think the other interesting part to this is his own Republican Party members turning on him, where perhaps they would have been scared to before and thought, my God, I'm going to lose my job. But they've held the line and done it anyway, which is slightly different from the normal run of events.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, for the master showman, and I know a lot of people give him credit for being this reality TV show star and kind of knowing what the sense of America is and the stories they want to tell or hear. He's lost control of this story. And I take your point, Doug. I think people will get hurt. Some of them probably innocently as a result of this. And there's no way this genie gets put back in the bottle. This will be the story of 2025, if not longer. So
I just wanted to add on that for the victims thing. I do think that what they are going to release shouldn't, and they're planning not to name the victims. But I think with so much information, stuff's going to come out, which I think you were saying earlier, Doug, will create rumor mill. The media will jump on it like rabid dogs and drag it out. And people who should have been protected will get caught up in the frenzy, because this is not like anything else that's ever happened before. But it's probably the right thing, because without this, people would hide who shouldn't be hidden.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Well,
okay. Story number 2 was that Cloudflare outage. Were either of you caught in that, where the internet got wobbly or like blacked out for you earlier this week?
yeah, I lost a couple sites, but I didn't even know what had happened until you told me what the story was, Doug.
Yeah,
So
I did too.
You did too?
I thought at first it was like something to do with a particular server, and then I realized.
Yeah. So Cloudflare, if you're catching up on this, suffered a significant 3-hour outage that caused error messages, disruptions across major platforms worldwide. There's no official estimate of how many users were impacted, at least 2 we know of. Cloudflare routes traffic for 1/5, 20% of all the websites around the world, which explains the wide-ranging impact that even briefly touched podcast delivery and airline operations. Now, the company later issued an explanation of what happened, and I think that's a salient thing. Dane Necht, their CTO, issued a message on LinkedIn, owned up to it, apologized for it, and look at the responses here. That's the point I'm trying to get across. When you're that quick and that transparent with a good tone to a bad story, nothing but support from really his core audience, technical people online. And that's the item that I wanted to bring forward. Crisis Comms 101, Miranda.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's just ticked all the boxes of speed, transparency, owning up, saying sorry, leaning into that first explanation. It probably got super technical and went over most people's heads, but then also the relevant stakeholders for their business, like other CTOs, would be able to understand it. And I think a really important point is, before they announced it, already the rumor mill was going, is this a cyber attack? And so what at least it did is it clarified that. So overall, great job.
I completely agree. I did wonder, or still wonder, what any lawyer in the room was thinking, because there was,
if they let any in, right?
Yeah, I was telling you guys before the show, I was involved. Well, we've all sat through these kinds of conversations, and when somebody's had to make an apology for a mistake or an error, and I was involved with one. It was a major drug recall, pharmaceutical recall, and the CEO, I think, very similarly, made a heartfelt apology for any concern that the product and its recall might have caused. It turned out the product didn't need to be recalled later on, but he did the right thing. But the lawyers hated it every step of the way.
Yeah, they want to change "we're sorry" to "we regret" every time.
Yeah.
Regret, meaningless word. But so
it's really interesting
about Cloudflare and the apology coming on LinkedIn. He must have used very masculine language because it worked. And David, that leads us to the LinkedIn story.
Well, yeah, and I wasn't sure where the story was going to land when I first came across it. As you know, I host a pretty large WhatsApp chat, and on Wednesday, International Men's Day, a few comments came up about, have you heard about this post that somebody had made? Somebody else said, yeah, I saw it. The post was about LinkedIn having some sort of bias, gender bias, where male posts were getting greater engagement and boost than female posts. That was kind of the gist. I hadn't heard anything like that before, so I took a quick look, and there was quite a bit of discussion, and some rigorous review of data started to take place. And I think the explanation I heard was that there's a proxy bias. So it's not necessarily that male equals greater boost or engagement, but the language that the algorithms use has a cultural bias towards more masculine language. That was just one of, I think, 6 or 7 different metrics, which kind of made sense. It also sounded a little bit wishy-washy. I know a lot of women said actually their personal experience was very different and very real and very demonstrable. And when I mentioned this to you, Miranda, you said, yeah, 100%. That's what I'm hearing too. So maybe we should ask a woman what your experience has been.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts on this and information. So I'm on a couple of WhatsApp groups with women on, mainly women in marketing, and one particularly women in PR. It's called Break the Silence. And that incredible group of women were really leaning into this, and several of them posted about it and also did the experiment themselves of changing their gender on LinkedIn in the settings to masculine. Some went as far as changing their name, using AI to generate a photo of themselves that looked a bit like themselves but made them male. But the net was everybody saw an upward curve, bang, like that on all their posts. Now, of course, this is super anecdotal, right? Because there are loads of ways you could break down and attack and invalidate this and go, well, you were making changes to your picture, to your settings, and every time that happens, a change creates an uptick. Maybe, you know, the language in the post you were making was something that was a trending topic, blah, blah, blah. So we know all this. We know it needs to be robust and looked at in a robust way with controls. But there are a couple of articles written, which I think you were alluding to, David. A guy, Martin Redstone, really interesting. He looked into it deeply, he unpacked it, and he found it's valid. Nobody is saying there's a secret bit of code that says downgrade content from women. It's much more complicated than that. It's probably because, how would I explain it in kind of layman's terms, is that because the algorithm's learning from real life, and real life has historical, you know, prioritization of men in business. That's just a trope. You know, this is what a professional businessman looks like. This is what good business language is. So it's kind of very masculine language, and all those things. And so actually it's filtering through everything based on stuff it's learned about the world at large, systemically, socially, that's out there. And so
which is more insidious, right? I mean, it's you can't just reverse a little bit of code. It's actually more insidious than sorry, I didn't mean to cut in. I was just
no. So it's a big thing, I think, and it's a bit more complicated than like just a few people doing an experiment. And I think it will take a while to work out what's really going on, because women use the word women in their posts and use emotional language, and so it unpacks a whole world of how a voice is being pushed to the top and heard.
Yeah, we were saying, you know, what action would LinkedIn be expected to take? There are legal ramifications to this, right? I mean, under at least data law here and in Europe. Did you read anything further on that? I have to admit, I don't know much about that, but I thought it might be something that would get somebody's attention at LinkedIn HQ.
I think a few people from LinkedIn have tried to respond. I read something where somebody had a dialogue and then they wrote up the dialogue, and that was mostly saying, you know, this isn't purposeful. This is how the platform works. And there are some people that know how to optimize every post and what it does and doesn't reward, and some people that don't. I think you're right. Under UK and EU law, there are a couple of buckets for discrimination in different forms, which this could sit under. But yeah, I guess the end point is it's probably not them as a platform. It's a reflection of something going on in the world at large.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's for me, it's a part of this is it's men writing code, right? It comes down to it's 30 something and 40 something year old men, maybe some 20 somethings living in Northern California writing code and not aware of their own biases.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we could spend more time on that, but I do want to move on to this is going to come to you, Miranda, but I'll set this up a little differently because I was inspired by a podcast that Doug and Farzana do, the Stories and Strategies podcast. And you had a great conversation with Nick Usborne, I believe, in Montreal. And he's got his own great story to tell. He's a digital storyteller and kind of a guru on all things related to tech and comms. And he made some comments about how, I think he called it brand drift, and how when we sort of regress to the mean when we use large language models. So Doug, I just wanted to give you a chance to comment on that, but I also want to zoom back out and I'll come to you with a specific question about how you're looking at AI at Pretail, Amanda. But
yeah, so real quick, and it sort of builds off of the LinkedIn story we just talked about. It's where, I mean, we're all using AI, and AI is learning our language, right? I use ChatGPT, I use Claude. I don't dip into Gemini as much, and I probably should. That's on the to-do list. And I know the algorithm's trying to understand how I like to phrase things, or how different clients like to phrase things, which we're informing it about. But the truth is, I'm letting AI write things for me, and a lot of us are. So the idea of brand drift is, well, the AI is changing your voice and you don't even know it. Miranda, that's an issue.
So yeah, I think brand drift is defined exactly as you say. It's where, you know, even on Google, they're creating an aggregated answer, and they may have scraped something that's out of date. It may not be direct from the brand's most recent website. It might be from just a member of the public talking about it on Reddit. So it's kind of all mashed up into this more vanilla thing, which isn't what the brand spent fortunes on crafting. So that's right. But I think, you know, when it comes to agencies, I think AI impacts and will be leveraged in quite different ways depending on your discipline. And PR is quite different to perhaps advertising and paid media agencies, because I think how our output shows up in the world is different. I mean, I could go on, but I don't want to just talk at you. What do you think, David?
Well, I went to 2 talks, or one I went to, one I dialed into, but one was from an AI entrepreneur, and his view was that literally that AI will kill agencies. That in a few years, there just won't be any reason for agencies to exist anywhere near in the number or size that they are right now. So he saw it as an extinction event. That's the word he used for agencies.
Ooh.
But I probably dialed into 10 other talks, one last week, about how actually, especially with GEO and the importance put on earned media, that AI will save PR businesses. And as we get to writing for the algorithms, it'll actually move PR up the value chain. And I just have to believe the truth is probably somewhere in between. I
agree. Yeah, so I think that's it. Like, you know, where I was going to go with how does it work and what's the impact going to be on different types of marketing service agencies. I think for PR, it's a great thing in a way. It vindicates some of what we've always done and where we've been bottom of the food chain. So now with Geo, you know, the LLMs, you know, look for and prioritize and value editorial and value owned over paid, and we know that now as a fact, and it's something we've all been saying, but it's really happening. And so if you want to show up in search, you need some great editorial, and I don't think, you know, that necessarily will just all be made by bots at some point, at least not for the short-term future. I think there are other nuanced things that's quite interesting. So I was talking to an amazing strategist from Pretail in America yesterday. He was talking me through an example whereby take a massive store, you know, like a supermarket or whatever, and you would at seasonal events be getting spikes of coverage around listicles, the kind of lists in media outlets that are like, here are the top 10 this, here are the top 10 that. And suddenly it went from getting hundreds of those kind of features the year before to getting like single digits. So they actually reached out and said to the media outlets themselves, what the hell is going on? And the explanation was because now of LLMs, because of AI search, that coverage is doing nothing for us anymore. It used to do loads for us. We'd get loads of hits, you know, we'd get loads of links. It's not doing anything for us. And we are, as a media outlet, changing the shape of the editorial we want to prioritize for our own survival, which then means PRs need to change the shape of the stories they're sending out to hit the available shapes, as well as who are the outlets that will have an impact for our brands, which means you've got to look at something with quite a lot of granular data to be effective. And I don't think that's a bad thing for us. I think it means when we go to clients, we've got something really robust to show. But I think it's super interesting and doesn't mean the death for PR in the way it might for other shaped agencies.
You know, I just want one quick follow-up for you. Are your clients asking you, are they asking you to build in GEO into solutions you provide for them, or are they still kind of stuck with earlier KPIs?
Some are and some aren't. And I think part of this shift will be not every brand side person that works for a brand in a department like comms or wherever it may be will be as fast as another. And so it entirely depends on what they're expecting, what their boss is asking, and their sophistication for what you do and don't do. But I think, you know, you're duty bound to at least explain to them what you think would be the best approach, which would be to consider that, of course, whether they asked or not.
Yeah,
Well,
we just launched an experiment, and I'll let you know in February how it went. Where the whole attempt is to come up better in Gemini and ChatGPT. And that's a dramatic change. So I got 2 quick stories I want to run through.
Okay.
Producer David O, roll the photo on the Cracker Barrel whenever you can. Want to barrel into the Cracker Barrel story. Their shareholders got together. And remember that fiasco where they changed the logo for Cracker Barrel? They got rid of Uncle Herschel, and that drove their main customer base throughout the southern U.S. absolutely nuts. They brought Uncle Herschel back in. Big rock to the whole brand. That did not go very well. So they got together as shareholders and were deciding who on the board are we going to keep and who are they going to turf. And the result is CEO Julie Fells-Massino keeps her job. Although she ticked off a lot of the customer base, she keeps her job. There was one board member who was turfed over this, and the share price is still down more than 50% this year. This is the crisis that really took a bite out of Cracker Barrel, and it has not gone away. So I don't know if either of you want to chip in on that. This was a logo thing, not so much a brand thing.
Well, it was bigger than the logo, actually. I did dig into this a little bit. It was a complete rebuild. Interior of the stores were changed. Maybe some adjustments to the menu. I'm not sure about that. And then the logo was the more prominent feature. And I think the reason given at the time was not out of concern of being woke or anything. It was realizing that their demographics were shifting. You know, that the average customer was getting pretty old, and they needed to kind of move into a different demographic with a different look and feel and brand. And we've all been in conversations where somebody said we got to change the brand for that. They clearly didn't anticipate the backlash, whether that was bot fueled or earnest or both. It's had a material impact. So it almost doesn't matter at this stage. So a lesson learned, I guess, is maybe a little more due diligence with your current users, not your expected users. Have you ever been to a Cracker Barrel, Doug or Miranda?
I have. Yeah.
Okay.
Enjoyed it. Have not been back since. So
it's pretty good for breakfast. We'll go there someday, Miranda. Next time when we're both in the US, I'll take you to Cracker Barrel.
Great.
Sounds good. Hey, I want to show you proof of a live show and how anything can happen on a live show. This is what happened on MSNBC during one of their live shows. It's a fairly simple thing. Have a look at the video and listen in on this.
Red states representing 30 senators account for about 10% of the entire population, and those 30 votes in the Senate get
Goodness. Son, I'm in the middle of a television show. You're the only person I would ever answer the phone for. I'm going to have to call you back. Please, Tom, continue.
That's never happened before.
Ever.
I love that. I love that.
Sign of a professional, though, when you're handling it well, and I could not help but include this video just for fun, right? To remind us all of what can happen.
How do democracies respond to those scandals?
And what will it mean for the wider region? I think one of your children has just walked in. I mean, shifting sands in the region. Do you think relations with the North may change?
I would be surprised if they do. Pardon me.
Pardon me.
My apologies.
What's this going to mean for the region?
My apologies. South Korea's policy choices on North Korea have been severely limited in the last 6 months to a year because of North Korea's behavior. Most recently, the use of VX gas in the airport.
Anything can happen on a live show. Anything. Miranda, you were for live. You were amazing. I really appreciate being on the show today.
I love that clip. It always makes me howl with laughter.
I halfway expected Farzana to call one of us during the show just to see what
Check your text. She might have texted.
She might have tried.
Really appreciate you for listening in. I want to leave you with one last quote from Nelson Mandela. If you talk to someone in a language they understand, that goes to their head. But if you talk to them in their own language, that goes to their heart. As always, thanks to superstar producers Emily Page and David Olajide. David was flying solo today. Emily wasn't with us today. Extra special guest to our guest, Miranda Mitchell. The Week Unspun is a co-production of Kurz and Public Relations, Stories and Strategies podcasts, and Full Gate Advisors. The shows go fast, but you can catch the recordings on David's LinkedIn channel, our YouTube channel, as well as Apple or Spotify for the audio. Actually, Spotify for the video. We start putting the video up. Thanks for listening.